Psalm 103. Uh, let's go back to verse 13. We talked about it last time, but it it's all, you know, let's do context, okay? As a father has compassion on his children, so the Lord has compassion on those who fear him. Doesn't always feel like it. I don't always get it. It doesn't always, maybe I can even say it often doesn't fit with my plan. But he is compassionate. He cares for us the way a good dad, cares for his kids. And then verse 14. Here's why. For he knows how we are formed. He remembers that we are dust. Yeah, he knows how we are formed because he formed us. We're not accidental. We were created on purpose. And I believe for a purpose. God knows how we are formed. You remember in Genesis chapter 2, God forms Adam from the dust of the earth, from the soil, and breathes into him the breath of life, and he became a living soul. God knows how we're formed, but sometimes we lose track of it. There's many things that God remembers. Here's an important fact, in my opinion, about God. God only forgets what he intends to forget. I forget stuff all the time. And most of the stuff I forget is stuff that I wanted to remember. God doesn't have that problem. He remembers. He knows how we're formed. He remembers that we are dust. James talks about this. He says, we are like vapor, like dust. All right, why does that matter? Well, several things. Number one, he remembers that we're dust. That means at least this: we're fragile. I am not a sculptor, but if I were a sculptor, I probably would not use dust as my medium. Dust, number one, is fragile. And secondly, one of the other things about dust is it seems uncooperative in most ways. It just settles wherever it settles. Dust. We are dust. You don't have to go very far with that metaphor to realize we are, well, is there anything lower than dust? I mean, less important, less valuable, less treasured? Well, there is that side of it. And that, if that's the thing we remember, that, we're lower than a snake's belly. I mean, dust literally is. I think we're remembering the wrong idea about dust. Here's what I think is the biggest idea, maybe, I don't know, in my mind it's the biggest idea of this, is that if we're dust, we're not God. I don't like that. I don't like, and I mean, there are days when I realize how important it is that I am not God, but there are days I want to be God. I want what I want. I want stuff to happen the way I want it to happen. I want life to conform to my plan. I want that plan to support the things I like. Hey, God remembers we're dust. Maybe we ought to remember that. We're not Him. One of the main themes of the entire Bible, in my opinion, I remember the first time this realization caught up to me. I had spent a year reading through the Bible for the first time, which, by the way, if you're watching this as I post it up, then we're getting close to the start of the new year. I want to challenge you. Read through the Bible this year. It's a very deepening experience. And I remember the first time I finished, I put the Bible down and I thought, well, the message is there is a God. You're not Him. It's all through the Bible. He remembers that we are dust, but I think we sometimes forget it. We think there's way more substance to us than there probably actually is. Okay. David goes on in verse 15. The life of mortals is like grass. They flourish like a flower in the field. Well, that's a neat idea. And then he goes on in verse 16. The wind blows over it and it's gone. Living in the desert, I have seen that happen. Sometimes I've told you, I sometimes drive out to Red Rock Canyon. It's a gorgeous place in my opinion, and I find peace and renewal just by looking at the grandeur. Okay, anyway, and there are times of the year when desert plants blossom and bloom, and they're very pretty against the backdrop of that gray-brown desert. But when it heats up, the wind blows over it, and ooh, down it goes. And David goes on and says the wind blows over it and it's gone, and its place remembers it no more. I mean, it's like you're not even a memory anymore. That's harsh. But I want you to think about it. If God decides to keep Jesus from returning, in 100 years, and unless I'm totally off the mark, and I think I'm not, what I do and what you do, it won't be remembered. In 100 years, it's very unlikely that if somebody says, oh, you remember Steve Thomas, people will go, who? I know this, this is true of my occupational presence, I guess I'd call it that. Years ago, I read that an older pastor was talking to a younger pastor about moving on from a ministry. And the older pastor put a bucket of water out and said, okay, here's how it works. Put your hand in, okay? And he did. Now take your hand out. You didn't leave much of a mark, did you? Unfortunately, that's a reality of life. While I'm here, I want to have an impact. I want to be a partner in God's work in my life and other people's lives. But you know what? Just like that, a hand in the bucket of water when I'm no longer there, that's just the way life is. And it's not a punishment. It's not, that's just horrible. No, it's not. That's the way it is. The life of mortals. We are mortal. Let's start there. What does that mean? We are finite. We have limits. We are on this earth, I will not live forever. Occasionally, at my age, I think more today than ever before about the finish line, about the end of my life. But when I was young, I don't remember ever thinking about that. Well, newsflash. You might want to highlight and underline this. You are mortal. Your life on earth is limited. Today, the actuary tables take us to a full life in our mid-80s. And I'm not displeased with that. I hope that my life will be full while I'm in my 80s, but I don't know. Even if I last a little longer than that, bottom line is, I'm gonna die. One of the fun things, and that's too flippant a word, profound is the better word, that things that I have discovered is that my life here is limited. I'm gonna die. My life here will end. But my life, my eternal life, life that is really life, where I love in the last of the 7 Chronicles of Narnia, the last battle, the children from all of the Narnian Chronicle stories pass through a doorway. And it turns out it's passing from mortal life to immortal life. And the phrase is farther in, farther up. And the farther in and the farther up they go, the more real everything becomes. I'm looking forward to that day. But it's not going to happen in this life. I am immortal. I am like grass. I flourish like a flower, but the wind blows over it and it's gone, and its place remembers it no more. Harsh reality, but you need to organize your life around it because it is reality. Now he goes on, but, pardon me for saying it, but this is a big but. In verse 17, but from everlasting to everlasting, the Lord's love is with those who fear him, and his righteousness with their children's children, with those who keep his covenant and remember to obey his precepts. My life is not infinite. It is finite. It has limits. It will end. And when it ends, his place won't even remember it. But from everlasting to everlasting, the Lord's love is with those who fear him. Well, when David says from everlasting to everlasting, what he's referring to is eternity, where time is no longer a factor. Eternity is not like just a long time. When I was a kid, I heard, I think it was my dad, said, eternity is like if you would take a stainless steel ball the size of the earth and spin it into orbit, and every 1,000 years, an eagle would brush its wing across the surface of that stainless steel ball. When that stainless steel ball had been reduced to nothing, that was the beginning of eternity. Well, even that isn't adequate. Once we step across into eternity, time is no longer a factor. Time is absorbed into eternity, and from everlasting to everlasting. That's how long The Lord's love is with those who fear him. I think there's a lot to think about. I'll leave it with you, and I'll see you next time on So Care with Stevie.